Hello, it's me again, Timothy, or Tim, or Timotheus, or Tim Z. For some reason, people been very creative with my name over the years. Um, as you know, I did a video a little while ago representing Champions/Hero System, a system that's been in one way or another been around in the RPG circles for 35 years. Um, and I explained sort of it gave you like a snapshot or like an introduction to the system. So the next couple of videos, I'm going to try to go step by step, explaining basically character creation. This video will be about character creation, and then the next one's going to basically be about combat and how the system actually works. Of course, I'll be mixing up some of that here and there, but mainly I'm going to be talking about the system today as far as character creation. Now, I played every edition, more or less, of Champions. I found Champions 1981, which means I started playing it when I was like 17, probably 18 years old. And I played it for like 4 years until I was 22, and then I dropped out of gaming for a while. I think most of my experiences with first edition, and then when I got back into gaming, it was fourth edition. I kind of missed second and third, but from what I understand, what I've read about it, it's not that different from first edition. In fact, as I said before in the earlier video, Champions really hasn't changed all that much. I mean, there have been some big changes, but the system itself has been pretty consistent. You can basically take a first edition character, and there are characters that appear in fourth edition that's still in sixth edition. That you can basically take a character that you made back in the early mid 80s and pretty much make them in the current edition without too much trouble. That's because the main system remains the same. That being said, I do have two editions that I mainly played for the most part since I got back into gaming. Really, as I said, gaming is what got me back. Champions got me back in RPGs after being away for 8 years. And I was actually at a Barnes & Noble. I think it was a Barnes & Noble or Walden Book back when they used to have bookstores. Hi. And they used to have bookstores in shopping malls of all places. And I found a copy of it, and I remember reading and going over the characters and like, wow. And that got me back into it. I hooked up with a group. And ever since then, I've been more or less playing it, mostly GMing it. Because for some reason people don't like the GM Champions, or really superheroes. At least down here where I live here in Miami, Florida, it's hard to find people that aren't playing like D&D or Pathfinder or something. But anyway, I'm not here to bitch about that. I'll bitch about that in a later video, but not this one. So I basically two editions. I actually I posted these videos on the Hero Game Board and the World of Supers RPG on Facebook. And a response I got in Hero, one was it was a pretty good video, and the other thing was people were asking me to focus on the edition. One thinking about characters, about character creation and rules. And basically two editions of the game that I've mainly ran and played over the years, and that would be this one, Champions, the fourth edition. This is a version of fourth edition that has not only the rule set, but also has like the genre book for Champions. And this is the one that just has the rule set. Okay. And then there's the one that followed after that. And that's this one right here. What is known as FRED. It stands for Fifth Rules Edition. Or Green Man book, because it has like a green man in front of it. Now, I've thought long and hard about what edition I was going to do. I actually did a video just a little while earlier today that after thinking it over, I'm probably going to go with fifth. And the reason being that even though I do like fourth and I think it was good, there were some things that fifth more or less fixed that made it a little better. And the other reason is because fifth is hard, it's more difficult to get hold of fourth edition rules in print, and I believe you can still get PDFs from Hero Games. And also, if you don't want a big used book, You have this is Hero System Sidekick. This is more of a stripped down, simpler version of Hero, which if this intimidates you, which it does sometimes, this might not intimidate you much. Because it's basically just, the basic rules with the skills and most of the stuff you need to make a character. Um, it's not all that complicated. It has like the stuff you need, the talents, the perks, most of it. Unless you want to make more a simple character instead of really getting into the nitty gritty, the deep recesses of the mind of Hero. So I'm going to use that as pretty much a reference against Hero System 5th Edition. The other reason is I really want to show the hero is versatile, and that I believe that Hero System 5th Edition tried to is a little bit better. I mean, you can do it 4th too, but I think 5th is a lot better for trying to make something isn't a superhero. Hero sort of has a later editions of Hero, oddly enough, sort of has schizophrenic mentality. I mean, a lot of people when they think of Hero and Champions, they think of superheroes. It's sort of like it's like going to a Mexican restaurant and expecting Mexican food, and they might have like really fantastic cheeseburgers, but nobody orders just cheeseburgers. Actually, reminds me of a Happy Days episode. Any of you people remember Happy Days? There's a two-parter. I think it was a two-parter in there where Fonzie was going to leap over a bunch of trash cans, and Arnold, the guy in front of Arnold's, which is like a fast food place, like a burger place, and there's a part where Arnold is mentioning that he's opening a chicken that he wants people to eat the chicken stand. And apparently nobody knows that Arnold has a chicken stand. Even though he's had it there for a long time, nobody knows he has a chicken stand. It's kind of like that with Hero. People don't always think about, hey, we do science fiction with Hero, we do Pope with Hero. No, they think of superheroes and they think of something else when they want to do fantasy or they want to do something else. Hero System a little bit better on like giving the opportunity to make something else or come up or try a different genre. Although you could definitely do superheroes, and they weren't afraid. They had a bunch of source material and stuff about Hero. Also, I think Hero System is a little bit more of a complete system. Like I said, they fixed some things that I liked about it. The only problem I have with 5th was that it got a little too much into making everything a power build. Like in 4th edition and earlier editions, like instant change was 5 points. Was, for instance, 5 points to change from you to your superhero your normal clothes to your superhero costume, and 10 to move from your normal clothes to any set of clothes to your superhero costume. And that was it. It was 5 or 10. And the Hero System made it a transform cosmetic, or like one example is say you want to build a 38 police special, just a 6-shooter revolver. And if you do it in 4th edition, it's 1d6 range killing attacks, 6 shots. Obviously, that's about focus. If you're doing an Hero System, it's all that plus real weapon plus strength minimum plus blah 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 blah, whole freaking paragraph. So I think they get a little crazy with that, but still, I think it's a good solid system, and I think it's the one that most people are still using, even when you go to hero boards. And most importantly, there is a program that helps you generate characters with Hero Designer, and you can make 5th and 6th edition characters. So it's a little bit more, it's more relevant today than 4th. Although I would definitely play or run a 4th edition game without a problem. I think more people are willing to want to get something they can pick up at a gaming store still. So I'm going to stick with 5th, and try to explain it all. So, first step. Here's the interesting thing about character creation in Champions. You can pretty much start in different places. Most games do a step-by-step process. Like, well, you roll your stats, then you pick the race, then you pick the class. Or you roll your stats, and you pick the profession. Or you roll your stats, and you do the whole life tree thing, or you do something. The idea is a step-by-step process. Here's more open-ended. You can start with the characteristics. You can start with picking your powers or your skills. You can even start with your disadvantages. There's really no limit to how you want to do it. It's all basically up to how you want to do it. Before I start talking about this, though, I want to mention one thing at the beginning. What character you create is vastly going to depend on the campaign, and there are basically two types of hero system campaigns. I'm going to switch from champions to hero system because I just do. But there's basically heroic level and super heroic. Heroic level and super heroic. The only real big differences between those is pretty much how equipment works and how your stats work, how your characteristics work. The biggest thing is that all the characteristics now are basically 8 what they call primary characteristics. Those are strength, dexterity, constitution, body, intelligence, ego, presence, and comeliness. All, as you can imagine, most of the stuff is self-explanatory. If you've played any kind of RPG. Strength determines how much you lift, how much you can leap, and how much damage you do when you punch somebody. Dexterity depends. It depends on how effectively you hit somebody, how effectively you avoid being hit, and it helps on like what kind of agility-based skills. It determines what's your chance to roll on agility-based skills. Constitution is how healthy you are. Body is essentially your hit points. If you have like 12 body and somebody hits you with damage that does 12 body, you're 0. If it goes below that, you start to bleed out. If you're negative 12, you're dead. Intelligence is basically that. How smart you are. Depends on their intelligence skills. Ego is how you fight against attacks, mental persuasion. If you have a mind power, that's what you're going to be using. A mental power, that's what you're going to be using to fight with. It's also how you resist things like torture or interrogation. It also helps when you need to do fight against a presence attack. Now, presence is essentially charisma. It's your force of personality. People with 0 presence are like the kind of people that when they walk into a room, it's like 2 people left. People with a lot of presence are usually people that have a magnetic personality and make an impression. The world leaders, politicians, actors, models, that would be basically with high presence. Comeliness is how good looking you are. Yes, that's pretty much it. Now, the figure characteristics are physical defense, that's based off your strength. Physical energy defense, which is based off your con. Physical defense is like dealing with taking damage, defending against punches, rubber bullets, basically physical attacks. Energy defense is the opposite. It's basically lasers, lightning bolts, power bolts, anything that's not physical. Speed, the way I'll get into this in combat section. Basically, Champions combat happens in turns. These are 12 turns of 12-second segments. Your speed determines how many segments you get to act in a turn. So you have speed 1 to 12. So that determines how many actions you basically take in combat. And then the after that is recovery. It's how fast you recover from being hurt. Endurance and stun. Now, to understand how body and stun works, just to make this simple, we'll go into more detail in the combat now. We'll get into character creation in a second. Champions has 2 types. Hero system has 2 types of damage. There's normal damage and killing damage. Normal damage is for every 5 points that you have in strength, or every 5 points you put into a power like energy blast, or blast. Every 5 points gives you 1d6 of normal damage. Every 15 points that you put into killing damage is 1d6. The 15 points of killing damage, and then 5 points of normal damage. Now the way that works is, let's say I roll like 8. I roll like 66 normal attack, and I get like, well, let's say, like I got the dice here. Let's say I roll. All right, so I roll like here I have, wow, it's not too bad. In normal damage, I have 4 fours and a 2. So that comes out to 14 points of damage. That would be 14 points of stun damage. And then your body, you're basically, you roll your stun first and then you multiply the body. The effect basically is, let's say somebody punches you. You ever seen people in a fight, a boxing match, or people just get into a street fighter or whatever. They might not die from getting punched in the face, but there might be like, they might like, you know, cut their lip, or there might be a bruise. There might be some physical, some minor damage, and that's what the body of the damage. The way the way that works is that 1 point gives you a number 1 rolled on d6 is 0, and number 6 and a 6 gives you 2 body. In this case, I have 4 fours and a 2, so I basically did that's 5 dice. So I basically did 5 points of killing damage to the person. Now, normally, since that is a normal attack, it's not a killing attack. Let's say the person has a PD of like 8. They're going to take like, this is like 14, so they're going to take like 6 points of damage and no body damage, really. So anyway, that's pretty much how that works. I'll get into more detail on that. The reason I bring that up because that's important to understand the way the system works. Anyway, so the stats all have different prices for them. Strength is 1 for 1. Dex is 3 for 1. That's mainly because Dex is kind of an important thing in 5th edition. It determines your combat ability, your speed, who goes first in combat. So it's kind of important. And Con is ×2. Body is ×2. Skill is 1 for 1. Ego is 2 for 1. Pressure is 1 for 1. And Calm is pretty cheap. It's only half for 1. So for 5 points, you can be incredibly good looking. I guess that's mainly because, face it, you don't see a lot of ugly superheroes unless it's intentional or whatever. It's not that important a stat. You can have a 10 con, won't really affect the game much. So that kind of explains that. That's the characteristics. As I was going to say before, there is a big difference. Like I said, the way the character. Now I remember what I was talking about. The way the characteristics work. If it's a heroic level campaign, the maximum that you can have the beginning 8, the primary characteristics is 20. You can't go. You can go above 20, but if you go above 20, it's double. The cost is double. So let's say you have somebody with a 20 strength, and you decide I want to get my character 25 strength, but it's a royal level game, so it's going to cost you, instead of costing you 15 points normally, it's going to cost you 20 points normally because you have 10 points plus you have 10 points more instead of 5 points, but you're going above 20, so it's double. The other difference between a heroic level and super heroic level is the way equipment works. In a superhero game, you pay for pretty much everything. You pay for, if your character is somebody who carries a twin pair of revolvers, and he's a superhero that does it, then he pays for those guns. If he's a heroic level character, then he doesn't pay for those guns. He just pays, like, he has to have the skill to use the guns. He has to have the ability, what they call, in this case, it's called weapon familiarity. Or have negatives. But otherwise, he can carry guns. He can carry some basic equipment that's available in the campaign setting. They can carry guns and carry shotguns. You don't have to pay for it. That's a major difference. And also, most of the heroic level games, you're not going to have a lot of access to powers. Most of your heroic level games are going to be like skills and other stuff. Occasionally, you might have some powers. You might have like mind control. In this case, be like hypnotism, which means you would have a lot of limitations. You can't do it in combat. You have to have the person sitting next to you, and so forth. You have something like, other things. You can have something built or a gadget. If you wanted like a Rocketeer type period, you'd have flight with a fuel limit with a whole bunch with some limitations on because it's jetpack. But the idea is that your compared to a superhero setting, your heroic level is going to be more or less low powered and more concerned things like bullets and stuff. Now, so let's move on. The next thing, the next category is skills. Skills range from are basically there's a number of different skills. Let me get in here. There are one thing I want to point out called there's one thing I want to point out called everyman skills. Everyman skills are usually allowable in most campaigns. The idea is that most people in a particular setting, everyone has these skills. And there are skills that anyone can try if not trained in. Anyone can try to sneak up on somebody. Everyman skills are moderns, acting, climbing, concealment, conversation, deduction, native language, paramedics, persuasion, shadowing, stealth, transformability, small motorized ground vehicle, and home, country, or region area knowledge. The idea is most people drive a car, and anyone can try to act. And now the idea about the everyman skills is everyone can try it, but they're only going to have an 8 or less chance to do it because they're not really trained at it. To get like a really high stealth, you have to be somebody that really knows how to be stealthy. And so 8 or less, all those things are basically 8 or less. So you basically have the categories of agility skills, background skills, combat skills, intellect skills, and interaction skills. So your agility skills are based on your dex. Your intellect skills are based on your intelligence. And your interaction skills are mainly based on your presence. Combat skills are like auto fire skills, combat skill levels. There's a defense maneuver skill that makes it hard for people to sneak up to attack your rear. Then there's like penalty skill levels. Penalty skill levels are like skills that only apply to a penalty. Like a good penalty skill level would be like a sniper. Like somebody like like a gun, like a person who's really good with a gun and taking specific body parts or something like that. Like it can be from the sniper to the hitman to what. So boss, what eyeball do you want me to shoot out today? Or something like that. And they're like 2-weapon fighting, which allows you to get an extra attack. And then, stuff like that. Okay. Most of the agility, the agility interaction skills are based on, like I said, the stats I told you, dexterity, intelligence, and presence. And they usually start at 3 points. And for every 2 points, you increase it by 1. That's pretty much how the skills work. They're pretty soft. It's pretty easy. They're pretty explanational. There's one interesting skill called cramming. Cramming, which I believe cramming is an intellect skill. It basically allows you to have a skill with anything temporarily and any less. The idea is you go somewhere and you just read the hell out of it. It's like, I need to figure out how to pick a lock. So I'm going to read everything about. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm going to read everything I can. I'm going to get on the internet and read this. I'm going to read that. I'm going to do all the research I can. And then in a couple of days, I'll forget all about it. That's a fun one to have. I think that might have. Give me 1 second. I had a book right in front of me. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So basically. You have a basic understanding of the skill, even if you wouldn't normally. So you have an 8 or less with it. So that's basically skills. One thing I would say, particularly if you're running the Sub-Zero game, please get some skills. I am so tired of being a GM and seeing a guy whose only skill is that he has +3 of hand-to-hand combat. You are a person. You're not always in a cave in tights. You're not always shooting people and attacking them. You should have at least a few skills. Now, some characters can have more skills than others. Depends on your character. Obviously, like a Batman character has a lot of skills. Probably more than a Superman character. And probably more than a Hulk. But he's going to have something. Something to give him a chance to do something, interact people, and have something. Because not everything's combat. And the next thing we get to is talents. Talents are sort of like in between skills and powers. It's what stuff people more or less in a real world have. There are people in the real world that might have like, we'll give an example. Let me go talents here. Like there are people that have like absolute time sense. They always tell the time. That can also be bought as a watch or something. ambidexterity. There are real people that can use both hands. Um, Stuff like that. Stuff that normal, regular people can do in real life. Um, and then there's like bumper direction, and there's ones that have one of them has a stop sign on. I'll explain what stop signs are in a moment, like danger sense, because that can run a game. And there's a few things here. Combat luck is one that allows you to get protection against attacks without actually wearing armor. It's the whole, oh wow, I thought that was worse than it was, or something like that, like attack that you thought that almost just barely missed you, or you rolled or whatever. It's a good one for action heroes. Who go into blazing glory and run across and dodge bullets and everything, don't get killed. And there's a lot in here. One important one is lightning reflexes. Lightning reflexes. Sorry. Lightning reflexes are extra dexterity only for the purpose of going first in combat. It's a good thing to have, like if you're playing somebody that's really fast in combat. If you want to, it's a way to kind of bypass a normal characteristic. If you have the character that can't go above 20, they really want to be fast in combat, you might get that, but it only affects in combat. It doesn't affect skills, your actual combat value, or any of that. So that's the next one. These are good. This is something you probably use in a pulp hero game or a heroic level game, because it's a little bit more like you can have something special about the character, but not beyond the realms of reality. You want to make a more realistic game. It's good to have one of these every so often, even when you're just a superhero and you have all this power, just to make it interesting. Usually not that expensive either. The next one after that is, or next one to talk about is perks. Now, what perks are sort of like things that don't really affect you in combat, but perk are coincidence are just called perks. But this is I can't speak my own language. Those are like access. That means you have a level of access to material, maybe like a security clearance kind of thing. Anonymity, which is like maybe you're not in the system. That would be something like somebody that lives off the grid. They don't have a social security. They're that kind of people. Computer link, you have stuff like that. Contact. Most characters have contacts. Batman would have Commissioner Gordon. Spider-Man have somebody at the Daily Bugle. Batman probably has tons of contacts all over the city to give him information. The Shadow literally has a network of contacts. Those are typically people that help you out, give you information every so often. The other one is favor. Favor are people that actually will do things for you, but they're one-shots. Maybe somebody owes you a favor and they do something for you, but after that the favor spent. Usually only 1 point for those. Contacts, going back to contacts, contacts can rate from like somebody that's just a minor official with the police department to somebody who has a lot of power, to like the president, and that it costs points depending on what the contact is. And there's like deep cover. Reputation is a good one. One thing that was a big improvement in 4th edition, reputation used to be only a disadvantage. Reputation can be a good thing or a bad thing. Reputation can help you, like a reputation, like for instance, you have reputations being a law-abiding superhero. Most people like law-abiding superheroes. Most people like cops that aren't crooked. People who don't want some lawless vigilante. But at the same time, it'd also be a negative disadvantage reputation, because people know that you're a straight-laced guy and might take advantage of that. But the idea is reputation gets you good standing with people, and people will react better to you. They know that you're a decent, upstanding guy, or they know that you're this or that. That might be positive. So you can have positive, you can have reputation positive, or reputation negative, depending on what it is. And there's another one here called perks. It's called money. Money has different levels. There's destitute. There's the one you actually buy. This is like a disadvantage. Destitute would be my first idea. Destitute would be basically somebody on the run, can't stay in one place. The 70s, 1970s Incredible Hulk was a lot like that. Banner was always just, wherever the Hulk took him, and usually he was starving to death, or having to go from job to job, and walk along the roadside Or they're on the roadside sticking his thumb out and you hear the music in the back. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. So, and that would be destitute because sometimes you don't know where the next deal is going to come from. He's on the run. Or it'd be somebody like Peter Parker. First thought, always behind on a rant. I'll go, has all these problems. Maybe not starving, but, probably eats like Surefine macaroni and cheese and and a pack of hot dogs at dinner, because that's all. Yeah, that's all I can afford. Yeah, I've been there. And then middle class is your standard 0 points, and then you go from there to like um, well off, and then filthy wealthy, and you can buy that at different levels. Filthy rich is basically like Lex Luthor before he became a criminal. You just have lots and lots and lots, insane amount of money, and you basically might be a leader of a foreign country or just the head of a mega corporation or just some guy that inherited a whole shitload of money, and that's basically the character creation. That's basically that. And then there's perks where you buy a vehicle in the basement. So if you want a character that owns a Batmobile, or one way you can do is you can have, if you have a team of superheroes, those superheroes can put together, donate character points to a vehicle or a base, and buy it all together. And it's usually 5 for 1. If you like 5 points to buy, 1 point will give you 5 points in a vehicle or a base. So they're usually not that expensive. It's good. If you want to play your game, that's fun. Just people to get together. Everybody donates 5 points. You have a 6 team. So like say you have 6 members in your team. Everybody donates 5 points. That's 30. 33 times. It's like, yeah, so it's a good sized base. It's like 300. There's 150 points right there, if I did my math right. And so you can make a decent base or a decent vehicle with that kind of money, with that kind of points. Okay. So we're going to get into the last thing here, and that's powers. But not the last thing. The next thing here is powers. Okay, powers have different costs. Most of your attack powers, Energy Blast is 5 points, give you 1d6 Energy Blast. And there are different categories. Now, like I said, as your champions, everything's point based. You're not going to roll for your powers. With this, I want to point out something that I think is really important in a superhero game. It's important to come up with a concept. At least it is for me as a GM. I want people to have characters that make some sort of logical sense or logical that thing about them that makes them work. I've seen people just grab a bunch of powers from a book and just make something, and it makes no rhyme or reason. They have powers that don't fit together. And most of the time, particularly in the Marvel universe, I see more like characters that have powers that have a certain theme to them, a certain purpose to them. Spider-Man, like Spider-Man, for instance, swings on the web, climbs walls, basically does everything a spider can. He doesn't like mind control people. He doesn't doesn't shoot fireballs out of his ass. He doesn't teleport. He doesn't do things that a spider shouldn't do. He does things that a spider would do. So he has a power set that makes sense. And I really think that it's best to do that. Think of a concept. Think about what you want to do. I don't want to go to the whole power list, but essentially there are the whole idea is that the way to understand champions is that champions is essentially a way to understand champions. Champions is essentially a what they call an effects-based system. What that means is that Champions is one of those games where if you think about what your character does, what it can do. Back when I used to help people make characters, I never actually started with the character sheet. What I did was I would take a piece of scratch paper and say, what do you want to make? And they say, well, I want to make this character does this. And you say, well, okay, what can he do? Okay, so you want to do this. Okay, well, this is simulated by this power. So you take you think about the special effect, or the thing you want to, what kind of character you want, the special effect you want to make with a power, and then you pick the powers out. So not like my first superhero RPG was Village Vigilantes, and Village Vigilantes does the opposite of that. B&V basically gives you like a list of powers. So if you roll like fire powers, it tells you this is how this works. Gives you they basically have everything written up ahead of time and you just write it down. Hero System doesn't really do that. Hero System what Hero does is basically you take the powers and you try to simulate the effect that you're trying to create. It does a pretty good job of it. It might be a little more time consuming, but you get to make a character that is the character that you want to make and that's part of you. So, with that out of the way, basically, the list here. Okay, they're basically. I'll use the sidekick, probably easier. All right, so yes, so basically you have attack powers. That would be Darkness, Dispel, Drain, Ego Attack, Energy Blast, Entangle, Flash, Hand-to-Hand Attack, Hand-to-Hand Attack, Images, Killing Attack, Hand-to-Hand, Killing Attack Ranged, Mental Illusions, Mind Control, Suppress, Telekinesis, Transfer, Transform. And they have body-affecting powers. Those are like Density Increase, Dislocation, Extra Limbs, Growth, Multiform, Strengthening, Stretching. And then your defensive powers, that would be Armor, Characteristics, Damage Resistance, Flash Defense, Force Field, Force Wall, Mental Defense, Power Defense. And then your mental powers would be Ego Attack, Mental Illusions, Mind Control, Mind Link, Mind Scan, Telepathy. And that's the gist of it. And then there's movement powers. There's extra-dimensional movement, faster than light travel, flight, gliding, leaping, running, swimming, swinging, teleportation, tunneling. And sense-affecting powers. There's all like darkness, flash, images, invisibility. And there's like sensory powers, clairsentience and senses, size powers, growth and shrinking. And there's special powers. Special powers are unique in that, I'll tell about later, there are these things called power frameworks. Power frameworks are basically power when a way of, with some limitations, a way to cut some of the point costs on your powers. You cannot put special powers in those because usually it's unbalancing. And the powers usually aren't that expensive that it requires that. That'll be enhanced senses, extra limb, flash defense, luck, mental defense, mind link, power defense skills. And then there's obviously the standard powers, which I've already mentioned more or less. And those will be put in something. Now, if you look at either 4th or 5th edition, I know nothing about. I don't think 6th edition does it. I don't have the 6th edition rules anymore. I tried them once a couple times, and just a brief pause, it didn't blow me away, and I didn't see the point in converting everything over and have all these books. Yeah, I understand why somebody who plays 1st edition D&D doesn't want to move on because you buy all this stuff, and well, so it doesn't mean anything anymore. I got to convert it all now, so I just stay where I have. One thing you will notice in both the 4th and 5th edition is stop signs on your powers. Now, what that means is what's the stop signs mean. And in 4th, they actually put little like magnifying glasses on them. But in this one, in 5th, they only have stop signs. Stop signs are powers that can more or less ruin your game or screw it up. I was like clairsentience, desolidification, extra-dimensional movement, flash and light travel. Stuff that just can kind of ruin, kind of mess up your game, make things too easy. Like we're about to be attacked by Ultron bots, and we're about, we countered. Oh, we're actually going to move. We'll leave. Bye. Or desolidification. Nothing can hurt me. And that could be a problem in certain games. One time I played in a Dark Champions game. The guy went at desolidification. It's like, nope. You want something that can't be negated, that makes the character too invincible, or just not appropriate for the particular game that you're trying to run. And clairsentience can ruin a mystery. I like clairsentience. I think you can do a lot with it if you're creative, but I can see where it can be a problem. So anyway, when I get too much into this, I'll be here all day if I have to explain every power, and you can read the book yourself. But like I said, character creation is something you have to really watch. It can take a while to make a character. There are aids. There are basically 3 character generators that are created for champions. The first one is Hero Maker, which is a DOS program. And unless you have a really old computer that still has an A drive, it's not much use to you. It's not a bad little program. Unfortunately, it only uses 4th edition characters. You want to 4th edition gaming, they're that hardcore, and you want to go like you still have your old computer and go to like Goodwill and get an old one. More power to you. The only problem with Hero Maker is that it couldn't handle I can't handle recent print drivers. So there's some way that I could never figure out to actually make characters through it. There's another one that was called Hero Designer. You can find a copy of it on MetaCreator, Alter Ego software on the MetaCreator program. That'll allow you to make 4th edition characters. I also believe they have a 5th edition option. And then there's the official one that comes from Hero Games called Hero Designer, which you can make 5th edition and 6th edition characters. I think it's like $25 online to buy it, and you can keep getting updates and stuff to it. So that can help you. At the same time, just want to make it clear. I know a lot of the biggest complaint people have about character creation champions is how long it takes to make a character. Well, yes and no. It can take a long time, but a lot of it really comes to what you're trying to create. Most people, oddly enough, most people that complain that it takes a long time to make a character never make a simple character. You know, they usually make a character that they want to have a lot of options, which take a long time because you have to figure out how this works and that works, and spend a lot of time making a character. Whereas if you keep it simple and basic, you can do it. It's not that hard. You might want to find some source books for if you're going to run a Champions game. There's a Champions source book called Champions for 5th edition, and if you're going to use 4th, they already have like some example heroes. So the best thing to do is actually, Jim, do you have any pre-gens? And might be a good idea for when I first introduced the group to Champions, I actually ran like a little demo. I basically had some pre-gens. I have an adventure where they're facing Mechanon, which is like the Ultron version in Champions, and I had to fight him. And then I got into making own characters. So it's a good thing to do that and help them make their characters. But really, it's not that hard. The thing is, you need to do what they call RTFM, which is read the freaking manual. Most people I met that say it takes a long time to make a character and never actually read the rules. They never take the time to learn it. They see it and see what it is and get intimidated by it, which it is. And it can be an intimidating system. It can be a little difficult for some people, but once you get past that and learn a character, really, actually, once you get past the character creation version, it's not that hard. The system kind of works. As a GM, does require some preparation work, but it can be fun. That can be fun too. And really, the fun thing about making a character is, in a lot of games, almost a game itself, trying to make a character. It can be fun. It can be a lot of fun. It's good to sit down with somebody who knows the system. I rarely met anyone in the time that I ran it that actually just made their own character without any kind of help. Most of them sat down with me and made a character, which is fine. I really wish more people would learn the system because I've been running it. Pretty much running most superhero games without actually playing anything more than a one-off. Most people just don't want to do a long-term superhero campaign. And I'm not at all bitter. Nah, of course not. I'm not upset about that. I'm not upset having to play like every other game but a superhero game, but that's all right. I had a lot of fun anyhow, and I can continue to have fun with it. Anyway, and then we come to the last one. Well, we come to the other things. There's power advantages and limitations. Now, this is where you get into something that might be a little tricky if you don't quite get it. There's a thing called, in Champions, called, active cost. Active cost is the base cost times plus one plus the total value of all advantages. So, like, say, for instance, give Sapphire wants to buy an Eagle Blast with the plus half advantage armor piercing. Sapphire's going to have an active cost of 40, has an active cost of 40 plus the advantage equaling 60 points. So the active cost on a power is the power plus whatever the advantages that you put on it. That's important when you're doing things like power frameworks. What are power frameworks? I'll tell you. There are basically three types of power frameworks. One is a multi-power. What a multi-power is basically is when you take a set amount of points and you decide to shift those points around with a list of powers. What I mean by that, let's say like classic examples of multi-powers in 4th edition that make the cut 5th or 6th, and his name's Starburst. And I know I was going to talk about 5th while referencing this character. Starburst, for instance, had 3 powers and a multi-power. He had a 50-point multi-power. He had a 10d6 energy blast, he had a force field, but I think had an advantage on it, so it was lower than that, and 25 inches of flight. Now, what it does is that every power that's under that multi-power point reserve, if they want the ability to move their powers around, points around, then they basically divide those powers by 5. So like somebody has a 50-point multi-power, instead of paying 50 points for each power, it's going to pay 50 points one time and then 10 points for each power under that. The limitation on that is you can't use all the powers at the same time but the same amount of strength. So like he could fly at 25 inches, but he will not be able to fire an energy blast or use his force field. He can keep his force field up at full power, he can use his energy blast for his flight, and so forth. Or he can put like if he wants to fly a little bit, he can put like 10 points into, maybe 20 points into his flight, and then 66 into his energy blast, or whatever. He can divide it, he can move it around. Another way is a fixed ultra, where you basically divide all your powers under the multi-power by 10. The effect is those are fixed, so you cannot move the points around. That's typically something you do when you have a character that has a lot of attack powers. As he has a multi-power, he has an entangle, he has an energy blast, and an energy blast with armor piercing on it, and he just basically like 3 or 4 powers, or as many powers as you want, but you only use them one at a time at full power. That's good if you want to carry a lot of attack powers, but it's not a good idea if you're going to do that, it's not a good idea to have the defensive and movement powers under that. Put those separate in something else. And another thing you put in is called elemental control. Now, the way elemental control works is you basically take in the special effect. Remember, I talked about all characters should have a special effect when you're trying to create a special effect. What you're doing is you're creating a special effect set of powers. And one example they give is the character Icicle. Icicle is an ice-using mutant. She has ice powers. She can run across the red ice slide and run across it. She can fire a physical like an ice bolt, like a big ice ram, and she can create armor around herself. And she can entangle somebody. She can free somebody to block ice or something. She can use all those powers at one time at the same time. So those powers at the full power. She doesn't have to move points around or anything. The only problem is all those powers are related to one another. Now, the way that works is you figure out how many points you want in that elemental control. Let's say you want all your powers to be 50-point powers. What you're going to do is you're going to cut that cost in half. So every power, the initial cost of the element is going to be 25, and every power under the elemental control is going to be 25. So instead of paying like full price for all of them, you're just going to pay half price. You're able to use all the powers at their full strength. You won't have to divide points around. But the limitation is all those powers are under one special effect on the elemental control. So if somebody knocks out that effect, all your powers go out. What I mean by that is, let's take Demon Torch from Fantastic Four. It's a classic example of some good elemental control. He can fly, he can burst into flames, and he can fire an energy blast, like a fireball. But once you hit him with enough water or you freeze him, the powers go out because they're all related. He has no powers outside of just the flame powers. So all his powers are under one type of power suite, and if that power gets negated, everything gets negated. So you have somebody with power with the ability to dispel powers, they can dispel that whole thing. So that's how that works. And then the last one is variable power pool. Now, I'm going to warn you, because I run into this over the years. Variable power pool is something to be careful about. Variable power pool is sort of like multi-power, where you have a certain amount of power, you have a certain points of powers, and you can do anything with it. It's typically how you simulate gadgeteers, magic users, people that can just pull out anything out of their ass and just do it. There's problems with that. First off, it can be very time consuming. It's something that you really, really need to pull. If a character insists on playing something with that, you need to make sure that they say, listen, you got to have everything laid out, you got everything done. You know, you got to have your stuff. The best thing to do if you want to play a character like that is have your powers figured out ahead of time so you can just slip it right in and do it. It can take a lot of time in gaming, and it can be very hard to handle, because the big problem with very power pools is it's hard to challenge a character who can always pull something out of his ass. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Look, in my experience, try to not make a basic character. Also, it's very expensive, because the only thing you limit is you basically pay a certain amount for the powers, and they have to pay a control cost. The only thing that can have limitations on it is the control cost. So, like, let's say you had a character like the personal multiplier that had 50 points. You would have 50 points in the variable power pool, and then 25 for the control cost. And the only limitation you put on is on the control cost. You cannot put any limitations on 50. So as you can see, that's expensive. It can be a very expensive character, and it can be sometimes you can have the problem of diminish your turns because you have all this versatility, but can't do much with it. In my opinion, variable power pool is best if you're trying to create a character that may have a little power pool. You know, maybe you can whip something up that's low powered, but it might be helpful. Classic character, in my opinion, variable power pool would be Reed Richards at Fantastic Four. That guy has an insane gadget pool. He's pulling stuff out all the time, because he's supposed to be like this one of the, if not the most smartest man in the Marvel Universe, and he just knows how to create all this stuff and explain it and create like all kinds of stuff. And that's basically, you know, what the frameworks are. Now we get into the last one, disadvantages. In my opinion, one of the most important things a character gets disadvantage, because it's not so much important what the character can do, it's important what the character cannot do. So I think, so honestly, when you come right down to it, that's probably the most expensive, the most important ones. Now, there are basically different categories, and I'll go over those real quick. Using this, your basic disadvantages are, get in here, are accidental change. That's pretty much like the Hulk and Banner, you know, or a werewolf that changes when he's angry, or something like that. Dependence is if you're somebody, maybe somebody that's dependent on something to survive. Maybe you need to drink blood, or you need your type 1 diabetes and you take insulin, or you suffer defeat. It's something that you're dependent on to survive. Or Aquaman will have dependence on, he needs to be in the water. If he's out of the water for too long, he gets dehydrated. That kind of deal. Then you get your dependent NPC. That's your Aunt May, your Lois Lane, your Mary Jane, your Pepper Potts. You know, kind of person that you need to rescue or help out, or needs your help, or somebody just dependent on you. Then there's the distinctive features. They can be good or bad. Oh, it's all disadvantage, but distinctive, some makes you distinctive. Like Nightcrawler would have distinctive features. The Hulk would have distinctive features. Certain characters that make them stand out. It can be anything. It can also be like the distinctive feature being a psychological thing. Like the cat burglar always leaves a calling card. That's like a psychological thing. We always leave it. So, oh, it's him. It was him. It was a Black Phantom. He stole the green corselet or whatever, you know, because he left his silver tuning fork or whatever. And that's the distinctive feature. It goes from easily concealable to not concealable, to where people notice and people freak out or whatever. Then you have Enraged Berserk. Berserk is basically where you just, something triggers the Berserk. Maybe you go and say Wolverine has a Berserk, so sometimes you just that's in combat and Beast gets free or something. Or the Hulk has Berserk because he gets angry if you piss him off. You know, if he has a prominent anchor. It could be something that just triggers it. Maybe you get angry. And enraged is berserkers. You freak out, and the first person you see attack. Enraged is more focused. Like you'll go after the guy that did it, and we don't break out and go to the next guy, but you go after the guy that did it. Like let's say you get enraged and in sense of hurt, and some guy like kills an innocent, and you freak out and you start beating the crap out of him. And it sounds like a good thing, but the problem in enraged, first off, you're not seeing to your defense. You always attack with the full amount of power. So yeah, can't defend himself. You take no defensive action or do anything other than attack the person. You have to say, which can be bad. Makes it easier for you to get hurt. And then next one on that is hunted. Pretty sure everybody's gonna have a hunted one time or another. It means somebody's after you. Give me anything from they're trying to kill you to like a watched. Watched means that they're not really out to kill you. They're just keeping an eye on you. Like if you're somebody that's a government superhero, then you're watched by the government because they keep tabs on you. Hunted can be like, it can be anyone from being hunted by the police because you're an outlaw. It could be hunted by, you can have an arch villain that hunts you every so often, and so forth. It could even be tied in your origin or something, or something in that range, Maybe there's some villain that you heard on your first day as a superhero and he always comes up and plagues you. Spider-Man was hunted by Green Goblin because, Harry Osborn's Norman Osborn's always out to get him. Superman would be hunted by Lex Luthor. Like people are focused on getting you. Physical limitation is I'm blind, I have no legs, stuff like that. Psychological limitation is basically something that it has different intensities. There's uncommon, common, and very common. It means when a situation that affects you psychologically happens. And then there's the intensity, moderate, strong, and total. They give me anything which cold to shivery, cold events killing, claustrophobia. This is examples I give. And what it means is when you run into that situation and there's something that challenges it, you have to make an ego roll to decide whether you overcome it or how you handle it. Like code versus killing, big example. Let's say you have a code versus killing. Now, not to get off topic here. Well, kind of get on topic. I know that one of the problems people have with playing superheroes is that, well, I can't kill anyone. Well, the idea is that you live in a modern society and most people aren't. Sure, we got the whole thing about the veneer and all the kind of stuff. I don't want to spend hours talking about this, so just get to the point. The premise in a superhero campaign, in most campaigns, not all campaigns, is that most people don't kill. You kill when your life is threatened. You kill when you have to. Maybe accidentally. Most I don't know much about criminals, but I do. But what I understand, most murders are kinds of passion. It's something people does at the heat of the moment, not intentional. So that could be part of the problem too. That's part of it. The other thing is. Let me get on. Sorry. The idea is that you also live in a modern society that has a criminal justice system. So if you start killing off all the villains you run into, eventually you will get free-handed by police. Now, you can play characters like that, but if you play a character that kills people, you're not just playing like, well, I don't have a code versus killing, so I can kill them. No, it means you're like a vigilante. You have vigilante mentality, or you're a casual killer, or something that's not a superhero. I don't want to get a big moral discussion about that, so I'll just go with that. That's basically what psychological limitations are. They can be anything from a phobia to a code of conduct to a personality quirk about you or something that you hate. Usually a phobia, hatred, or some sort of code that you live by. The next one after that would be, go back to this. Probably the next thing after that would be like reputation. As we said before, reputation can be bad or good. Like I said, reputation kill a vigilante. Police won't work with you. People are scared of you. criminals try to kill you on sight because you're dangerous. Social limitation is, well, the common social limitation is secret or public identity. Secret identity means you have a double life. Um, you're this by day and that by night. Public identity can be just as bad. Public identity is basically someone with a public ID is basically somebody that is like a celebrity. The president would have a public ID. Most celebrities have. That means everybody sees you, everybody knows you, and you can't just walk out in public. People know who you are. An extreme one would be like celebrity, but public ID basically means the Fantastic Four all have public IDs. Everybody knows that Johnny Storm is a Human Torch. Everybody knows that Sue Richards is Invisible Woman, and Ben Grimm is a Thing, and they live on either Baskerville or Four Freedoms Plaza. Everybody knows where the headquarters is. Everybody knows who they are. Now, if you don't have security or public identity, we always viewed it was you basically somebody that kind of has a secret identity, but you really don't go to a lot of trouble to conceal it. Mostly like the X-Men are like that, you know. Yeah, Wolverine doesn't go around telling everybody he's Wolverine, but he basically doesn't deny it either. Most it's pretty much what that is. You try to kind of do it, but you don't make an effort into it, and most of the time you sort of have default, but it's not enough that you try to keep a double identity. Yeah, that's kind of how that works. The other one, social identity, could be dependent on the system. Like, say you run a World War II Golden Age Champions game, being a woman or a black man, or Japanese or something. That would be a social limitation because you might not be allowed in certain places. You face discrimination. It could be. It could also be like maybe you work for the government. So you have a social limit to subject to orders. You got to do what they tell you to do, even if you don't agree with it in a way. Social limitations is just that. They're not psychological, they're not affecting mentally, but there's something you have to deal with because you live in because it has to do with being socially with someone. Then suspectability. Suspectability is like kryptonite. You know, if you're in a certain substance or something, it starts to affect you. Like some evil supervillain that's demonic would have susceptibility to holy places. If you put him if he's in a church, it starts to hurt him being in something that's positive or holy. Vulnerability would be like pretty much like that. Vulnerability is a different susceptibility. Vulnerability is an actual attack. If you're an ice person, then you might have a vulnerability versus fire, and vice versa. And I think and there's an unluck. Unluck is a fun one. Luck is also a power that you can have. Unluck is the opposite of that. You can have up to well, and here it doesn't really come up with it, but once you get above 3d6 and unluck, the unluck starts to affect other people around you instead of yourself. What that basically happens is the GM will decide at an appropriate time which to roll unluck. And if one comes up when he rolls 3d6 or 2d6 or 1d6, it means something goes wrong. Like Spider-Man runs out of road fluid right in the middle of a fight because the GM rolled a bunch of ones on him, whatever you can decide it is. You know, just something happens that gets in the way, or something that makes things more difficult for you. That's that. Some people like taking that. Some people hate that because of the GM control. And if you're a dick of a GM. Now, another one to point out though, these are meant to enrich the game and make an interesting character. It should not be meant for you to screw over the players every chance you get. A lot of people will not play Champions games because they don't like. I know some people that don't like the idea of disadvantages on their character. They don't like the idea of having anything negative about their character. They want to be perfect and not have anything the GM can mess with. And I kind of see the point that they don't want to be screwed over all the time, but I'll see the point. Well, that's no fun. I mean, Superman's boring without kryptonite. Spider-Man's boring without like Aunt May to worry about, or these problems that come up because he's a superhero. You know, it's characters are fun because of the problems they run into, challenges they face, and what they can and cannot do. The limitations are on them. And playing a character that has no disadvantages, maybe you think that's fun. I think he's a boring character. So, same time as don't be a dick. You know, don't just like, oh, you have a DMBC. She's gonna get raped every week. You know me? Oh man, that bitch is gonna hurt. You know, or secret identity. Oh, everywhere you turn around, people are gonna take pictures. It's gonna be, you got like 15 people trying to find a secret identity. 100, they're gonna show up every week. Code versus killing. Every single villain you run into is a psychopath that murders, that eats babies, you know, and sets fires them to churches and just deserves to die, you know. I mean, don't make all your villains psychos, you know. Not every villain has to be a Carnage or a Joker or some morally bankrupt monster from hell that destroys everything. Don't make it to where people regret having them. Make it so that it's fun, not so that they can regret ever playing a game or ever picking a disadvantage. So that's pretty much what I have to say about this whole subject. I've been here for like an hour or so. I think I've gone over how to do it. Like I said, it can be a lot of fun making a character. And one advantage, because the way the system is up, like I said, the hero system is more cinematic. It might take a while to make a character, but you pretty much guarantee you can have the character for a while. Death in superhero games are rare, and they're usually meant on purpose. Sometimes self-sacrifice in the case of the Jean Grey Phoenix thing, where she killed herself because she couldn't control Phoenix anymore, or stuff like that, where it was important. It was important that they died. Death of Superman, or it was an important plot point, or it was important to show something, or just something that you care to want to do. Don't just kill people outright. Make sure that mattered, that maybe they're doing something to save people, or maybe they're doing something in the middle of a fight, or whatever. But that means you're going to have to character for a while. Now, granted, if I was playing a game where death was pretty easy and I could die any minute, I don't want to spend more than 10 minutes making a character. Okay, I would not want to play a D&D game where it took 2 hours to make a character that gets killed off the first round. One guy had me spend like over an hour making a Shadowrun character, and then had me encounter a mage and killed me in 1 second. So I don't really want that. Don't do that. But remember, you're gonna have the character for a while. And the best thing about it is, when you do get experience points at the mission, you can do anything you want with the experience points. You can buy off a disadvantage. You can increase your stats, you can increase your powers, or you can just save them up. You can even do what they call radiation accident. Say I played this character this way for a while. I have like 50 to 60 hit points. I want to do something special with them. Something happens, and he gets an extra power, or something that changes the character. Like a more subtle example of this with Hawkeye, Glenn Barnett, one time was Goliath, because he felt like he wasn't able to pull his own being an archer, so Hank Pym gave him a formula and he became Giant Man. So he totally changed his character. And he changed the character the way he was played and everything. There was even a time that Spider-Man had like cosmic adventures where for a while he had incredible cosmic powers, and he was beating up the Hulk and taking on all these really powerful super villains and heroes. That was temporary, but it was fun. So you could do that. But the best thing about it is you can do anything with this. I used to have a Hero System coffee mug that had a Hero System label, and on the mug it had stats for a coffee mug. Seriously, using a multi-power. Plus it was plus 1d6 HA. The tagline was, the special effect was, get your hands off my coffee, and life support for I only need 4 hours of sleep. And that was on, you can stat it out if you want to. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. When next chance I get, I'll go over to combat and how that works. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you respond to it. I hope you like it. I hope it's been informative. And I really hope that you guys try this system out and try not to be too intimidated by it. If you can find it, if you want a simpler version of these rules, there is a sidekick book. There's a sidekick book right here. This only costs $10. And you can pretty much run a game with it. Pretty much everything you need is right here. Then of course there's a big one. This cost me $50 when I $40 when I bought it like a while ago. I don't know how much it buys online. Maybe you can buy it online sometime. Like I say, you can buy the PDF from Hero Games. Maybe get it printed out. You probably find a fairly inexpensive copy online. And of course, you want to go back. 4th edition is a good one too. Both of them are really good, solid systems. I just find that by myself, I just think 5th edition is somewhat better, more complete. But I also think 4th edition is really good. If you want to run a superhero game, has a really good advice about how to run superheroes. And also because it has a lot more non-superhero stuff on it. It has Star Hero, Fantasy Hero, Pulp Hero. By the way, even if you're not running champions, if you ever run a Pulp Hero game, you want a good resource, pick up Pulp Hero. It is fantastic. It is a really good job of like explaining the pulp. And I'll get into that. Maybe if this picks up, I'll do some reviews of some products. Maybe we can give a top 10 and top 10 best and top 10 worst or something like that. But this is Timothy, and I'm signing off. And in words of Rob Bell, be a hero.